So here on screen with me, this young man named Jason Chu. He's a rapper. Hey Jason, how about you tell me about yourself a little bit?
Yeah, 大家好，我叫朱正南，Jason Chu，我是个 ABC，我是美国长大的，美国出生的，我妈是来自马来西亚的，我爸也是来自泰国的，但是他们也是华人，so very much, Chinese American, Chinese diaspora. I'm a rapper, educator, and activist,
Yeah, I
and
noticed that three identities of you. You
yes, sir.
put your bio very obviously there. We will talk about that. The reason why I talked to Jason today is because recently Jason did a music video with a group which I'm pretty familiar with. They are from San Francisco. They call them Grant Avenue Follies. A bunch of ladies, let's say old ladies, elegant, and they're vibrant. 2 years ago, they did a really famous music video. It's called Gamo. So I mean, Jason, you must have watched that, right?
Chicken feather duster, yes, sir.
Yeah. Do you know what that means? Like Gamo.
Oh
So
yeah.
tell me about
Use it
that.
to I think a lot of Chinese kids, a lot of people who grew up in a Chinese family
Right.
are a little very familiar with the feather duster, and let's just say all of the ways it can be used, not just for dusting, right?
Yeah, it's a bit the ass of your naughty boys, right? And
Exactly.
by that video, those ladies deliver a message. It's like, don't mess with Asian old people, right? Why would you do that? I know better, and I don't afraid. I'm not afraid of you. I think that's a really powerful message to send at that context. Even so, nowadays we still hear that kind of really tragic, sad, heartbreaking news occasionally. So tell me about your collaboration with this bunch of ladies. I know the song is named That Lunar Cheer, right? Different vibe, right? You are just celebrate this Chinese New Year or Lunar New Year. What is it about? Why you start this?
Yeah, so really what it was, a desire to show Chinese or Asian grandmothers or, sort of elder folks
Right.
in a light that's different than how society often views them. I know your viewership is global, but especially in the West, right? Especially in the West, there's so many stereotypes about Asians, about Chinese, and about the elderly. And we wanted to do something, have a collaboration that showed how, these ladies that you see on screen, some of them are in their 80s, in their
Right.
70s, and to show that they're not just being older, being, in the phase of life they're in. They're still out there doing new things, trying new things, being loud, really breaking some of the stereotypes
Yeah.
around what elders can do and who they are and what their voices can be like.
Yeah, I don't know if you feel like they are recognizable in your own life, but for me, I sat down with them, I dine with them, and they always joke around. They always have lots of funny thing to say, and they try to get the most delicious food in Chinatown, and they dressed up, right? They have this like I want to show off kind of spirit.
They
Do you have that?
they
Yeah.
Yeah, they know what's going on. And it's so funny. One of them, we were sitting together in San Francisco when we were shooting the music video, and she
Uh-huh.
was sharing about how since 19, I think 68, she was a nightclub dancer in Chinatown.
Yes.
And yeah, they still have that same energy. They love to party when they get together.
Right. You mentioned is who is Cynthia, right? Cynthia Yi. Right.
Cynthia
She's
Yi,
a
the Empress.
professional dancer, and she still look gorgeous. I mean, today even, right? And she
hmm
been through, I think, a lot of really real shows. They went out to perform outside San Francisco. I think
Oh
they
yeah.
must be very veteran in this entertainment business. Hmm.
Yeah, that was a really fun thing too. When we got together to
Right.
work on this rap and this music video, you know how it is. When you're an entertainment professional, there's certain things you can tell from someone who's doing it as a hobby or someone who's just doing it kind of as a creative outlet versus someone who's been in the trenches, who's worked, who's hustled, who's grinded and made it happen. And they are absolute professionals, absolute stars.
Right. With that being said, they are still, let's say, age, then they are not as fast as you, especially rapping. This is a kind of need some skill, right? Usually what we say excellency of a rapper, like how fast he could talk or sing. How can you just either collaborate or teach them to do this art form they probably really not good at, let's say. Excuse my word.
No, I totally get it, but I would actually push back on that a little bit
Yeah,
because
go ahead.
this is a big thing. This is a big message for me as a rapper, as a Chinese American rapper who grew up in a Chinese household, but in hip hop culture also. I had black friends, white friends, Asian friends. Hip hop is not this, I think often in media, sometimes certain elements of it get exaggerated,
I see.
the danger or there's certain pieces, I'll just say, that get exaggerated by media.
I
But
see.
really what it comes down to, think about it, right? In Chinese, we have 快说, right? In Jingju, and there's this
Right.
快说. And when I was living in Beijing, I would see
Oh, you live in
on
Beijing? Huh.
CCTV. Yeah, 我住了北京2年了. So I would see, older entertainers, 50s, 60s, doing 快说, and you hear the rhythms, and it's just as sort of fast and technical and intricate
I
as a
see.
rap. And so these ladies, literally, hip hop turns 50 this year. It was born in the early 1970s. So these ladies actually kind of grew up alongside hip hop. Clara, who I'm sure you know well,
Right.
Clara actually, she was a poet her whole life.
Yeah, she
And
is.
there's this connection between hip hop and poetry, especially, Langston Hughes or some of these other great Black American poets are definitely part of the foundation of hip hop. So I would say when I came into this collaboration, it was less, oh, y'all ladies don't know anything, and here I'm here to teach you. It was really genuinely more of a collaboration. It was less starting from scratch and more, okay, so you already know how to do this. Now here's a rhythm I'm thinking about, or here's a way to take this idea that you had, this line, this thing that's true to your life, and to deliver it just a little differently. But I think one thing that's very important to me, a message for the Chinese and Asian diasporas, is that hip hop is not this strange alien culture. There's actually a lot of ways I think that it ties into a lot of elements of traditional Chinese culture and heritage and literature.
Well, how that be? I that's just really shocking to me because I usually think, okay, Chinese, at least in appearance, right? We are mild, moderate people, and we usually very polite, right? We don't want to have conflict, right? We compliant with law and all kinds of even unsaid social code, right? We are good citizens. But for me, hip hop, or especially rap, right? Rapping is about to unleash your anger, right? Like, I'm just not happy about this, right? I need to fight, and I use my words as a weapon to either shape my reality, or I have to push back something like I really don't like. Then how these two different, seemingly far away cultures uh, blend in your own, I mean, either art creation and your life? That's a big question.
Yeah. Yeah, that is a big question. I don't know if we have the time to address it all, but
We have. Let's do it.
hey, let's go.
Yeah.
here's where I always start. I'd say, you know, like Chinese traditional culture, right? It,
Mm-hmm.
it is 文明, right? It is 和谐, but it's,
Harmony, yeah, like a
yeah, right?
civilization, all right, civil or
Yeah,
harmony. Mm.
yeah. So that's certainly true. But you know, I mean, I'd say the same is so hip hop was born in 1973. It was created by a community centered around a Black Jamaican immigrant,
Jamaican.
DJ
Oh,
Kool Herc.
mm.
Yeah, and so when you think about it, right, it came out of the Jamaican and Dominican and Black American experiences, which their experiences were, you know, obviously slavery in America, obviously being colonized by the British Empire, being taken from home and placed in Jamaica and placed in Canada and placed in Australia and being used as labor. And when you think about it, right?
Mm-hmm.
For a lot of the Chinese diaspora, Chinese people know what it's like for the British Empire to come and colonize us and oppress us, right? Chinese know what it's like to have to go places for whatever reason, political reason,
Mm-hmm.
economic reasons, right? We've immigrated to Australia and to America and to Canada and to the UK and to Eastern Africa. We understand a lot, we have a lot of shared background experiences with the community that created hip hop. And as much as harmony and civilization are Chinese values, you know, I think also, so when I was in college, I went to Yale University and I studied Yongchen.
Yemen, right? Yemen.
Yes, yes, Ipman,
Right.
yeah. Yeah, so, you know, the origin of Yongchen Kung Fu is a young woman, right? There's this young woman who was being taught Kung Fu, and she created this style of Kung Fu that could be used for women and for poor people
Yeah.
to fight against oppression, right? If there's
Mm-hmm.
something unjust, if there's something unfair, if there's something immoral happening to them, that form of Kung Fu was a way of standing up. And you look even, yes, at the Iman movies, and
Right.
you know, Donnie Yen is fighting back against racism, against oppression, against imperial colonizers. And so I think that there's also this side of Chinese heritage, which resonates with, because I think this is something that's very important for Chinese people to know and Asian people to know, is that hip hop is not random rebellion and 很乱，它看起来很乱，但是它在心里不是很乱。Right? It's actually very focused. It's if it sounds rebellious, if it sounds angry, that rebellion and anger is directed at people who have, you know, pushed you out, or the forces or the government or the society that has overlooked you and has done actually uncivilized things to your community. And so I think, you know, my grandfather, he was born in Lanzhou, Gansu, Lanzhou.
Wow.
Yeah. And he left China and he was an author. He was an author and a journalist. And
what he wrote about?
yeah, so he moved from Lanzhou to Bangkok, Thailand, where he met my grandmother, who is Chinese Thai. And he would write about the state of the Chinese community in Thailand. You know, there's many Chinese in Bangkok and around Thailand. And he would write essays and articles about what it's like to be Chinese in Thailand, right? How are we contributing to the country? How are we, you know, maybe not getting along with Thai people and so on. And
so that means you are the third generation of minority Chinese, like, right? If your grandfather lived in Thailand as a minority, then probably your father, I don't know, your father moved to United States, or?
Yeah, my dad and my mom separately came to the U.S. for university.
Then from what I read, you grown up in Delaware.
Mm-hmm.
Delaware. That's
Delaware,
a
that's right.
East Coast, little small state, relatively small. I've been there before.
Second smallest state in the country, yeah.
Yeah, that's from what where President Joe Biden came from, right?
That's right. That's right,
I've
yeah.
been to a city called Dover, I think, right? Like, and
That's the capital.
There's some air base, right?
Mm-hmm.
So tell me about the community you grew up with.
Yeah, so like I said, I grew up with black and white and Asian friends. There aren't many Latinos in Delaware, but I grew up in, kind of a diverse American community. And that's actually why I got into hip hop. This is why I got into hip hop. I got into hip hop actually because I was a good student.
Because you were a good student?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. So
like everybody, like every Asian kid, huh? You just
we work hard.
Yeah.
We work hard.
Right. So tell me more about this. Is that a affluent community or just a middle class or even otherwise?
Yeah. Sort of a middle class community. I grew up in a suburb that was, very, very middle class, some people on the lower income side, some people, a couple of friends who were more wealthy, but generally very American suburban middle class.
Mm-hmm. But did you feel that oppression or racism during your coming of age? I mean, or is that a problem for you during your younger age?
Yeah, so this is how it looked like, and this was exactly why I got into hip hop culture and music. Yeah. So for me, racism was rarely violent or physical, but it was. I talk a lot in my music about how racism against Asians in America and around the world in many places is more about erasure and expectation than it is about overt physical violence. So obviously in the last 3 years, we've tragically seen a surge in physical violence in Australia, in the UK, in Canada, in the US. But for me growing up, often the way that racism was manifested was that it came in the form of expectations, right? Expecting that as a young Chinese American kid, I would be interested in this or I wouldn't be interested in that. You'll probably study hard and you'll probably be good at math, but you might not be funny, you might not be attractive,
right?
And this is the big thing, the big difference, I think, right? If you're Chinese in Hong Kong, Taiwan, mainland, Singapore, you are just a person, right? There's no expectations of, because you're Chinese, you're going to act this way, right? You've got loud Chinese people and you've got quiet Chinese people and you've got Chinese people who go to great schools and you've got Chinese people who don't do great at school. But in America, it's this expectation, it's this box of if you're Asian, you're going to be in this very narrow range. And even if your life is very different from that, the imagination is that you're here. And hip hop was the first place that I found a voice that was saying, hey, no matter what box you put me in, I'm going to tell my own, I'm going to define who I am. I and the community I'm from are going to speak rather than letting you speak for me, right? And this came in the form, there's a saying, right? There's nothing that scares America more than an educated black man. There's nothing that scares America more than a black man who is smart and educated,
vocal,
and exactly vocal and informed,
right?
And that's because it breaks the box of the stereotype. And for me, hip hop was, when I heard it, because I'd always done very well in class, I was very studious, did well in math, did well in English, did well in all these subjects. But and I loved writing, I loved poetry, I loved writing essays, I loved reading books. But what always kind of annoyed me was that the way to do well in a literature class, it's not to write in a different voice and it's not to come up with new insights. It's to fit the mold, right? You write an essay and it's structured like this. And here's your idea one and idea two and idea three. And here's your summation. And that's a good essay. But in hip hop, people were saying things that are not grammatically correct.
Right.
They were using language, like you said, they're using strong language, and that might not be acceptable in certain places. But they were saying, hey, this reflects my community. This is how we talk. This is how we act when we're around each other. These are the things we see. And if you don't like it, fine. It's not for you. But if you like it and it speaks to you, then come to us. We're not going to change ourselves to fit your expectation. We're going to just plant the flag and say, this is what we see. This is life. This is how we talk. This is how we live. These are our names. And you're going to say them and accept them. And that spoke really strongly to me as a Chinese American kid who had grown up with stereotypes and expectations, as someone who, you know how it is like you said, you moved to America 11 years ago, right?
Yeah,
and
yes.
sometimes you don't always speak English the way that a white person would speak it. But that shouldn't make, right?
Yeah, I could never do that because I didn't.
And that shouldn't make you a second-class citizen, right? That shouldn't make you lesser than, as if, I've got a line in a song where I say, her English ain't broken, it ain't been colonized.
Yeah. So now you are an outlier, right? You are out of the box. I would like to see more, let's say, variety of individuals in our community, so we can't live without that kind of stereotyping, right? I think that actually especially hurt our kids. I mean, I don't care. Maybe I was too numb or too dumb to feel that kind of discrimination, and I usually, probably my nerve is big enough, I can talk like this, even I'm not really fluent in English, but I will express myself anyway. Just in any circumstances, I will use my limited vocabulary to voice my opinion. I'm not afraid of that. But next generation, like what you grown up with, right? They probably will be set to some kind of expectation. But sometimes I was thinking, when you talk about this issue, I was thinking maybe some of the oppression come within us, right? I would definitely, even from the people around me, as a parent, right? They set the expectation for their children, just like you have to be good at math, you should do really great in academy stuff. And they tend to ignore the emotion power inside the kids, right? They think like you should regulate yourself, right? You should behave. If you have problem, deal with it, right? So maybe that's part of our culture. I'm not saying this society doesn't have that kind of oppressing power, but I mean, culture always have this oppressing power in any kind of culture, right? Chinese culture itself has lots of oppressive thing, but sometimes it's even very hard to tell what's really good and bad because it's mixed, right?
Yeah.
So I'm assuming your parents treated you probably something to do with their tradition. Is there any conflict when you grow up with your parents? Like,
yeah, I would say that growing up, so very quickly, the way to put it is I was very obedient, then I was very disobedient, then we found a kind of harmony. So growing up, I was very, very, I was actually homeschooled. from
Oh.
first through eighth grade, because my parents uh, saw that I could learn faster if they just taught me. So my
Mm.
mom actually left her job and devoted her time to raising my sister and me. And then at eighth grade, they said, okay, for high school, you need more resources. So I went to a magnet school,
Mm.
a science school, a special science technology school. And then I had all these other influences, and I was like, wow, there's a whole world out there
Yeah.
that you know nothing about, that you taught me nothing about. So I became very rebellious and was
Hmm.
saying, oh, you were just holding me back, socially, culturally. Um, and then toward the end of high school, so we fought a lot, and then they kind of actually let go a little. And
Mm.
and what my mom told me later was, she said, we realized that you didn't always do it the way we would do it, or we would have you do it, but you always did or tried to do the right thing, and you made sure to make it happen on time. Maybe instead of writing an essay a day before, I would spend all night before it was due writing it. Maybe, the way that I would live would look different than what they would expect from me. But they saw that I had a good heart, I
Mm.
had good friends, and I was trying to be good. So when I got into to college, when I went to college, and I started as a biology major, I started as a science major, but then I gradually moved towards philosophy and then the arts. And they said, we can't help you. We don't know how to help you have a career and make money from this and be
Right.
have an income. But if you believe in it, right? If we know we raised you well, we know we gave you good values. If you are doing this, if you're pursuing music because you are living out the values that we taught you, then we will allow it. We'll give you our blessing.
Wow. That's I think lots of Chinese parents need to learn like how you what our mission probably is just support your kids' true passion about what they're gonna do with their life, right? So are
Mhm.
you happy with your choice so far?
I'm I'm so happy. I'm so happy. I'm so fulfilled. There's all of these, if it weren't for music, I wouldn't have gotten to connect with the Grant Avenue Follies. If it
Mm.
weren't for music, I wouldn't have visited the White House or gone on tour
Now
or
tell me
made the
about
friends
that.
I have.
What happened? How did you go to White House? And who did you meet? Mm.
Yeah, so just a couple weeks ago,
Yeah,
this year, 2023, was the first ever in the history of this country official White House Lunar New Year celebration.
I see.
So I work, I'm a musician, but my music and everything I do is all about um, social justice and history and culture and community. So I do a lot of work, including I'm the communications director at Hate is a Virus, which is a nonprofit organization to
Mm.
support and educate and bring together the Asian American community. So the co-founder of the organization and I were invited to the White House to attend this first ever Lunar New Year celebration.
Mm.
And it was so meaningful because, America certainly has a difficult relationship historically and even now with a lot of Asian cultures and communities. You can look at the Vietnam War, you can look all the way back to, sort of the Opium War and everything that the West has done to China. But to see a lion dance being done in the Great Hall in the White House, to be drinking and eating with many Asian American friends under portraits of President Lincoln and President Washington. It was so symbolic to me of, there's still many issues for Asian Americans, but we are seen and we're known as a part of this country, as a part of this, American community.
I see. Yeah, my political view probably a little different with you. That's normal, right? Because we live in this very democratic country, and I think that's the beauty of this country. It's like we can freely express our view about almost anything, right? We can criticize our president. That's I think is still the not maybe the best, but not the let's say least evil system we can have, right? So far, I mean, lots of people around me, Chinese immigrants, they tend to lean more on a little bit conservative side because maybe their economic position in the society usually pretty good, right? They are in a little upper class actually. Is at least they are middle class, and they feel this all kinds of, let's say, some far left movement. They feel threatened. Do you understand that? Do you understand their concern?
Totally empathize.
Like their concern about their kids being taught like too much of let's diversity, equality, and what's that? I means
inclusion,
inclusiveness, right? Because they feel like still their mindset maybe came from their original culture. It's like you should perform well, you should shoulder your own responsibility, and why do you want to teach that, right? You just do your own stuff, right? They tend to ignore the equal side of the human side of us, right? Sure, there should be sympathy, but I'm not saying they don't have, but they prioritize this thing a little different. So in Christmas, I mean, lots of Chinese family, when their kids came back from their job or college, they have this fight, and sometimes it's heartbreaking. How you, from your perspective, tell something like, let them or reconcile this relationship a little bit better, especially with your rap. I mean, I wish to hear something you rap about this issue, like then make your parents, that generation, listen, right? They probably don't have to agree with it, but at least they can really know what's you thinking this issue.
Yeah. 我希望我们会有相互了解 right? I just want mutual understanding. You don't have to agree, but at least empathize. And I agree. Honestly, I'm saddened when people can't see humanity in each other, right? When people can't understand why people feel the way they do. And you might not agree with the conclusion they come to,
right?
But people's experiences are what they are. So going to your question, I think that so much of it is, obviously if you're Han Chinese in China, right? There's certain experiences you do have and certain experiences you don't have. And then you move to America and your children are growing up as Han Chinese, but not in China, not in a...
They have no clue what Chinese are.
Right? And I think that it's an opportunity, right? It's an opportunity for both sides to understand something that's different from the experiences they had growing up, right? If you're Han Chinese in China, you don't kind of understand fully what a 少数民族,
minority,
how they live and the experience they have and the feelings they have. And now you have these children who are growing up as a 少数民族 in America, and it's an opportunity to understand something about the world that you don't otherwise, but vice versa, right? If you're a kid, I think that all the time we don't give Chinese parents or immigrant parents enough sympathy, enough empathy, enough, we can often say, hey, the second generation, the 二代, we can often just think, oh, they're out of touch. They don't understand my life. They don't understand the world. And I don't think that's true at all. In fact, they understand the world very well, but just
Mm,
from a different perspective than I have.
right.
And hopefully, my message, to any Chinese parents or Chinese kids or Asian parents and kids out there is let's listen to each other, right? Understand that we're different people. We were shaped by different society and culture and forces. And so, at worst, that can lead to conflict and tension. At best, that can actually create an opportunity to expand our understanding and learn from someone who maybe grew up as normal in their society, not as seen as a minority. Um, or it's a way to empathize. My parents and I have this conversation all the time because it's exactly what you're saying. They're socially a little more conservative than me. Certainly, we often vote different ways, but through the music and through the art, it gives me something to start a conversation with them. I
Right.
remember I was back home for the holidays, and I came out of the shower one day. It was like 1 a.m. and my mom is awake, and she just asked me in passing, "Son, why did they kill Tupac?"
Oh,
Tupac
yeah,
Shakur, this
yeah,
this
yeah.
great legendary rapper.
Rapper.
Um, and that led to a conversation about what his voice was doing and the things he was involved in, positive and negative. And because I have this tie to this culture, it
Mm.
helped open a discussion for her to understand something about this country and this world that she didn't know before. And it gave me an opportunity to connect to her and see her not just as, oh, that's my mom and she doesn't understand the things I'm into and she doesn't care about this. We had that, mutual built a little bit more mutual understanding.
Yeah, because your mom was curious. I think that's always a good thing, curiosity,
Yes.
right? I want to know more and not like have a fixed view, like based on my past experience, because they usually will think you're just a privileged kid because I worked my ass off to raise you, and so you can have this opportunity to do this thing that didn't make much money, right? That's
Hmm.
usually their
Hmm.
attitude. But again, I mean, mutual understanding matters a lot, and I really think it's like politics. You have to have that office to do certain things, and in order to get those office, sometimes you have to do a little bit, maybe a little overdo, right? Like
Hmm.
say a simpler message so you can have more voters supporting you. Maybe not exactly that's a thing you want to do, but you want to do things, then you have this slogan. So I think in art, same thing. I would encourage the artists, Chinese ABC artists like you, just voice your things out loud and make people notice you, right? Pay more attention to your presence, and then probably you will bridge this gap and all those walling segmented community together. I think I would really love to see my next generation, my kids, to doing stuff like that. I think that's American. That's
Hmm.
American I would like to live. I would like my kids and grandkids to live in.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't have said it better. That's exactly what the goal is. My mission statement is speaking hope and healing into a hurting world. Whatever I do, whatever music, whatever video, whatever tour and show I do, I want people, because we all know that there are hurting people here. Some of us are doing better, some of us are doing worse,
Right.
but everyone feels bad sometimes. Everyone has had things happen to them. And for me, if my music can bring a little hope, can help people open their hearts a little bit more, that's really the goal for me.
Yeah. Last thing I would like to tap into is like some new immigrants, maybe they will think this hip hop will incite violence. But maybe, I'm saying maybe it's a good outlet for some kind of
Yeah.
emotion, and that probably will turn down the potential risk. Which one you think is true?
I always think that as artists, our voices have power. And I believe that because the artists that influenced me were so powerful in my life. Like I said, there were these, really a lot of Black voices who helped me shape and understand the world around me. So I think artists have that responsibility to lead the people who listen to them and follow them well. Um, but I absolutely agree with you that the answer is not just to live within the lines again, right? Not just to like box ourselves in again, but to model for our audiences and our fans what it looks like to be angry and to, make noise and to be rebellious against things that are wrong, and things that are not going right in the world. But to me, it's about guiding your listener through every step of that journey, right? I have music that's about expressing anger. I have music that's about just letting out emotion. I have music that's about mourning and being sad. And I have music that's about healing and celebrating that. And I think that if we're going, my encouragement to artists and what I try to do in my music is to be my full self. And what that means is, not just to get stuck in a lane of saying, oh, I'm the angry rapper, or oh, I'm the loud rapper, or oh, I'm the thoughtful rapper, oh, I'm the smart rapper. Like showing that we can be all of these things. And I think when we have that holistic approach to music and to life, really,
Right.
Because it's beyond music. We need to be our whole selves. And going back,
Right.
sort of taking it full circle to your question about, Chinese kids feeling oppressed or boxed in by culture. I think anything that makes us feel like we have to be less fully human is a bad thing. Anything that lets us embrace the full range of our emotions and reality while also offering healthy ways to move forward from there, that's a good thing. And that's what I've seen music be for me. And that's what I've seen hip hop culture and rap music be for so many of my friends, mainland friends, Taiwanese friends, American friends.
Very well said. Thank you again, Jason. I learned a lot. Hopefully our audience can learn something. In the future, probably we maybe someday can collaborate with something, right? I'm trying to working on the homelessness project, documentary project. It's just still in the planning stage, but with maybe, who knows, right?
I have a lot of connections in folks in LA who are working on housing and homeless issues, including folks who are working on elders in Los Angeles, Chinatown, who are at risk of being unhoused. So reach out anytime. These things are important.
Right. Yeah. Thank you again. And please check out Jason Chu. He has a website, official website, I think TikTok, maybe Facebook, right? Just Google him, right? Google him.
Yes,
Thank you
sir.
again.
Anywhere, anywhere.